Doo-doo-dee. It's Nandi!
Hey guys, it's Nandi here again. Today we're bringing you the newest guild boss, who is the Ork leader, Ghazghkull. This guy is one of the Ork prophets and the single most influential Ork in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. He's fought basically every faction you can think of, whether that's the Imperium, the Eldari, Chaos, Necrons, you name it. This guy loves war and I'm super happy to see him in the game. He comes to Tacticus as a guild boss and is the latest addition after we've recently added the Necron Silent King and some Tyranid bosses before him. So this is a guild raid video, and one of the most common requests I get in my messages is to do these sorts of videos explaining the guild raid boss, their skills, and who is good or bad against them. So today's video we're going to do just that. You're going to have a look at never before seen footage of Ghazghkull in action. We're going to discuss his traits and abilities and end with who I think will be good and bad against him. I'm also going to dive into the Ork boss primes because they have a mechanic that we have never seen before in this game, and I'll give you some advice about how to tackle them too. So with that said, let's jump straight in. So here we go, we're looking at the guild boss map. We've got a couple of the Tau who are allied up with the Eldari because we do not yet have 5 Tau characters. And you're looking at Ghazghkull up there on the top right hand side of the map. He looks pretty cool. He looks like he's a giant robot. He's got some pretty cool power armor or mechanical armor on him. And as I pull up his stats there, you can just see what we're looking at. He's got a movement range of 3. He's got both a melee and a ranged attack. The melee looks to be power, and the ranged looks to be projectile. He's got big target, which the bosses have. You know, he takes up a huge amount of space on the map, and therefore doesn't benefit from cover. And Daka is a new trait that we're seeing on Ghazghkull, which basically says that if he's attacking at range, then he gets bonus hits. And then the last thing that we're going to see here is the trait that all of the guild bosses have, and that they are immune. They're immune to hex effects and unit effects, and that's just maintained so that you can't reduce their armor or apply marker light to them at the moment. So we'll have a look at his skills next, and the first one is here we go. Ghazghkull faces in one direction and charges out in front of him. Essentially, you will see it in action shortly. The Great Wa is his summoning ability, where he summons both Storm Boys and Ork Boys. What you'll notice here is that the amount of Ork Boys he summons is dependent on the number of summoned creatures you have on your side. So this is very much a sort of anti-summoner mechanic. The Storm Boys are summoned no matter what. Needs more Daka. Again, you'll get a demonstration of this in action shortly, but essentially it's his area of effect ranged attack, where he attacks 3 squares in front of him. And if you're standing right in front of him, you take more damage. The next ability is Proper Killy, which is just essentially a way of saying that if you get attacked by this guy in melee, you will die. He does a sort of area of effect attack, melee attack for the 3 squares in front of him. And that attack also does 60% of each target's maximum health as damage. So you can see there, based on the hex sort of setup we have in this game, it'll affect all 3 enemies in front of him if he attacks with a melee attack. They also get stunned, so basically if you get hit by this attack, it's lights out. This passive ability is what defines this hero. Ghazghkull is the prophet of Gork and Mork, and this is totally changing how we approach guild bosses and this particular boss. I'll have a deep dive into that skill later on, so don't worry if you didn't catch it, but the last passive ability is essentially an area of effect aura that makes his fellow summons not run away and also do bonus damage. So turn 1 here, we're just running up to the Ork, just positioning ourselves. There's nothing too exciting happening here, but just getting ourselves in position. Athena makes an attack. Again, you're not seeing much here. I'm just passing some time until Ghazghkull's first turn, and then we can start to see his skills. Okay, and the end of our player turn, and we move on to Ghazghkull. So here you see the ability that we talked about on turn 1. Here we go. So this is where Ghazghkull charges in front, in a line in front of him, and deals heavy damage and stuns all targets in front of him. So you can see the squares that he would charge into very clearly illuminated in this kind of red-yellow sort of lighting. And in fact, I think I'm going to just move Dark Strider here so I can demonstrate how that works when Ghazghkull takes his turn. The other thing I want to note is, so far, after Shozao makes his attack, we've had 3 attacks on Ghazghkull. Revas will be the person who makes the 4th attack. And I want you to pay close attention to the damage numbers here, because what this also demonstrates is the profit of Gork and Mork ability. So Revas has a unique attack action, which actually generates 2 different attacks. We've now had 4 characters attack, and now Eldrion, if you look on the top right hand side of the screen, has a damage stat of about 350, but when we attack it's only doing about 30 or 40 damage. And that's really important, because that's what defines this boss, this profit of Gork and Mork mechanic. Attacking him multiple times triggers that sort of defensive buff, if you will, and means that you do heavily reduced damage. So here we are, turn 2, he's doing his area of effect attack, and I've put Revas in front of him so that you can see how that area of effect manifests. And again, here you'll see 346 damage, but when we attack Ghazghkull, we only do 36 damage, so about 10% of our expected damage. Turn 3, Ghazghkull summons his Storm Boys and his Ork Boys. So there's a lot of summons here, 5 and 5, and unfortunately all of my characters just die here. This is it. This is lights out. I don't even get to see another turn take place. I want to show you the summons, so I'm going to record another video and just highlight those as well. This time we're using a 5-person Eldari faction, and I'm just kind of going to fast forward this and skip ahead, because what I'm just wanting to show you here is the summons that he creates and just some interesting skills and mechanics around them. So same again, we see turn 1 that he does his sort of charge in a line attack. Here we go. We dodge out of the way this time and just get into position in order to let him charge. Again, I'm attacking with 4, so in fact all 5 characters here, and what you'll notice is on the 5th character's attack, so in this case it's going to be Athena, we're expecting to do 169 damage, but we do far, far, far less than that because we've triggered his profit mechanic. So turn 2, again, he does his area of effect ranged attack. So again, we're dodging out of the way of that. I think I leave Jane Czar here. And, we're doing our 5 attacks, and the 5th character, I'm being repetitive about this, but this is really important, because this is how you tackle this boss effectively. You need to really understand this mechanic. So Calandus, we're expecting to do 540 odd damage, but when Calandus attacks, it does 69. So turn 3 again, we get a lot of summons here, and this is what I wanted to show you, because what you'll notice is as soon as the Storm Boys landed, you'll notice that one flew away straight away, and there again another one's flown away. And this is just a fun little thing I think the developers have thrown in. So the Storm Boys have this mechanic here where when they move 3 or more hexes, there's a chance that the rocket that they've got strapped to their back malfunctions and the Storm Boy essentially dies. And I think that's super fun and super cool, because that's essentially what the orcs are. They're just, chaotic. They don't make a lot of sense. They paint themselves red in hopes that it makes them go faster, and it actually does make them go faster. But we can see that these units will sometimes just die. The Ork Boys throw a stick bomb. You'll be familiar with these. They're all over the campaign missions. So here we have a team of summoners against the Ork Prime Give a Scraps. I've chosen summoners deliberately because of this unique trait that we're seeing for the first time on a Prime, which says Boss Adjutant. Essentially what this means is that Give a Scraps takes reduced damage from attacks, but at the end of each turn loses 1% of its current health each time it was attacked. So clearly you want to be attacking Give a Scraps as much as possible in order to trigger that 1% health loss as much as you can. So the first turn is just, we just pass some time, get into position, nothing too exciting. And then turn 2, we get to fight Gibboscraps. So we're just going to do our summoner's thing, just summon as many summons and attack Gibboscraps as much as possible, because I want to show you how this 1% mechanic works and how crucial it is for attacking the boss. So we've attacked probably 4, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9 times by my count, and you saw that, minus 200 health tick away several times at the end of the turn. So we'll see again, our summons have been distracted this time, but we'll still manage to get some hits in. It looks like we're probably going to get 4 hits in if my maths is right. 1, 2, all of our main characters have attacked Gibboscraps. And at the end of the turn, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ticks there for minus 178 health. So more so than any direct damage we're dealing against the character, these 1% ticks seem to be the best way of reducing the prime's health. Now, I'm in no way playing this optimally. I'm just kind of rushing through my turns. But we can just see, just by virtue of summoning creatures and those creatures attacking Gibboscraps, we've got the prime down to about half health. And again, very much not playing optimally here. So that's the gameplay footage done, and now we can just kind of analyze the characters in text form and discuss things a bit further. So we look at Ghazghkull first of all, and the thing to note is that he always takes the same turn order. So turn 1 is where he always uses his Earwiggle mechanic, where he charges forward in a line, kills summons, and stuns characters. Basically, it's pretty simple. Stay out of the red squares or you'll die. That's the bottom line. And he always does this on turn 1, so you can try and figure out some ways of maneuvering towards him without stacking all of your characters up, in case he chooses to charge towards them and totally disrupt your formation. His turn 2, he always needs more Daka, which is his area of effect ranged attack. He does more damage if you're adjacent to him, but again, the same principles apply. Don't stand in the glowing red squares and you'll be fine. And on turn 3 is his summoning turn. So this is where he summons his Storm Boys and his Ork Boys, and they will all come and charge you. This is also the first turn where Ghazghkull also makes an attack for the first time. So on turns 1 and turns 2, he just sort of puts down his red squares, but on turn 3, in addition to summoning his kind of boys, he also will attack you with a ranged or melee attack. We'll finish looking at the rest of Ghazghkull's skills here. He has proper Killy, which is a melee attack that attacks the 3 squares in front of Ghazghkull. It targets the character with the highest hit points and does 60% of the target's maximum health as bonus damage, and also applies a stun. So as I said in the intro gameplay section, just stay out of melee range if possible. Or if it's unavoidable, then try not to stack your characters up too much. The boss is watching is another cool bit of flavor where the orcs around him won't run away, and he also gives them a damage aura. Finally, we look at Prophet of Gork and Mork, the thing that sets Ghazghkull apart from the other bosses. He takes minus 90% damage after the 4th attack each turn, and we'll discuss that further on this next slide. So what does that mean? What does Prophet, Gork and Mork mean? And I think the important thing here that I want to explain is the sort of technicalities around language. It certainly took me a little bit of time to understand it properly. So the thing to note is that an attack equals an attack action, and therefore not the number of hits. And I think the easiest way of demonstrating that with an in-game example is using Bellator and Certus. So Bellator has a 6 multi-hit attack, and Certus has a 1-hit attack. Now, despite the fact that both of these hit different amounts, they're both considered one attack action for the purposes of triggering Prophet of Gork and Mork. Great. Now you think it's really simple and it stops there, but actually there are some exceptions to the rule. Because some characters generate attacks or attack rolls from multiple sources, and Revas is a good example of that. So I've copied on the screen Revas's passive ability, which says that when Revas is attacking a target, Revas deals an additional, whatever amount of damage. And therefore, for the purposes of interacting with the Prophet of Gork and Mork, Revas counts as having 2 attacks, even though she only attacks once. I understand that's a little bit tricky, but if you come back to the slide whenever you're confused, hopefully that helps to explain things a bit more. We'll briefly look at Ghazghkull's summons next. And the 2 summons that he has are the Storm Boys and Ork Boys. The Storm Boys are summoned 1 per enemy. They have flying abilities and physical damage, and there's a chance for the rocket to malfunction and the unit to die. So you saw that in our gameplay videos, and that a couple of these Storm Boys, just by moving around the map or even getting summoned into the map, their rockets malfunctioned and they died. The Ork Boys are less exciting. We're very familiar with them from the campaigns, and they get summoned whenever you create summons. So this is another way that they've disincentivized us to bring characters in who can summon. So the next bit we're looking at are the 2 Ork primes, and we have Tank Smasher up first. So Tank Smasher is the prime that reduces the boss offense. So if you deal certain percentages to his health, then you will reduce the number of Ork Boys that are summoned, and you will also cause Ghazghkull to deal more damage on his attacks. He has that unique damage mechanic that we were talking about, Boss Adjutant, which is where he has reduced damage taken directly from sources, but he loses bonus health at the end of each turn depending on how many times he was attacked. And I put that attack phrase underlined because, again, the terminology is slightly unintuitive, and you need to think about what I'd mentioned just previously. An attack is an attack action and not the number of times the character is hit. The other prime is Gibascraps, and this is the really important prime, I think, anyway. By killing Gibascraps or reducing his health in percentage intervals, you reduce the boss's armor, you reduce the boss's ranged attack, but more important than anything is it increases the number of attacks to trigger Prophet of Gork and Mork. So if you completely kill Gibascraps, as you can see that I've highlighted, you increase the threshold for triggering Prophet of Gork and Mork from 4 attacks to 7 attacks. Gibascraps still has the same Boss Adjutant damage mechanic, but I think of the 2 primes is going to be far more important to kill in order to reduce the effect of Prophet of Gork and Mork. So we move on then to who should we bring, and I suppose it's pretty obvious, at least for the primes, that we should be bringing in characters who can make multiple attacks, and the most obvious characters that can generate multiple attacks are characters who are summoners. So I think summoners are going to be really, really good here anyway. In terms of who to bring and who to avoid when attacking Ghazghkull, it's basically the other side of that coin. Summoners are really bad because they're going to eat up your Prophet of Gork and Mork charges, if you will, for lack of a better phrase. So you want to avoid bringing them whenever possible. You also want to avoid characters with few hits and poor mobility, because if they can't run, they can't get out of those area of effect attack squares, and that's just going to cause you a big headache. So the characters that are good, who should you bring? And I think this is a boss like no other in terms of demonstrating how good Eldryon is. If you're not familiar with Eldryon yet, Eldryon's passive essentially adds damage to every hit, and therefore benefits greatly from characters who will make multiple attacks. So what you want to do, I think anyway, is bring characters to the table that have multiple hits. For example, Revas has 9 hits, or High Marshal has 5 or 6 hits. And each of these hits is going to trigger Eldryon's passive and really allow you to stack up damage on the boss. Other alternatives are bringing characters who have a damage aura or a boost so that you can make the most out of few attacks. And it goes without saying that you're going to want to bring characters with good mobility so that they can dodge out of those turn 1 and turn 2 area of effect attacks. This has been a long video, so I'm just going to end quickly on 2 points. The first of all is Along with this new guild boss change, we're also going to be seeing changes to guilds on the whole. And one of those changes is that guild sizes are going to increase. At Pants of Horus, we're always looking to recruit people, and we'll certainly have lots of open spaces in our guilds with the changes coming up. So if you're interested in joining a community of fun, friendly, supportive sort of teammates, whether you're competitive or free to play, we've got a home for you. So please reach out to us. I'll leave the link to our Discord in the video description below. And finally, if you've enjoyed my content, if you've enjoyed this video and you found it useful, I would absolutely love if you could put in my refer a friend code. It goes a long way to supporting me and sort of encouraging me to continue doing this content. But, you know, even if you can't do that, don't worry, because just the fact that you're here and part of this journey and experience is everything I could ask for. So thank you so much for watching, and I wish you all the best with the new Ork Guild Boss, Ghazghkull. Bye now.
Doo-doo-dee. It's Nandi.